Hey everybody, thank you for joining. If you can hear me okay, we're just waiting for more people to show up and we'll be getting started in just a second. All right, well, thank you for everybody joining us today. Sam, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Justin.
Hey, excited about our topic today, and we still have some people trickling in, but giving them a couple minutes, so I think it's good to go ahead and get started on everything. So let me pull these. Let's see. All right, I think we are ready to get going. Well, like I said, everybody, thank you so much for joining Sam and I today. We are really excited about what we're talking about. And so let's go ahead and kind of get right into the topic today, because I know a lot of people are really eager. So haven't spent as many years as I have on the healthcare marketing side of things. And Sam, all the years that you've spent on helping these practices grow reputation, all too often they don't know either where to start, or there's just so many questions to be answered that I think that they really struggle even getting out of the gate. So you and I kind of put our heads together and thought it was really important to kind of help make sense of everything, and what we coined kind of putting your marketing roadmap together, and what, if you really break it down, can be a not so overwhelming process. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of what you need to be doing, what you need to be thinking about, and a preferred order of steps to kind of go in. So why don't we go ahead and kind of jump right in?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot out there to focus on, right? And so our goal today is to help provide some structure, what social media platforms you should focus on, how to rank on website, both local search and organic search, paid ads, should you be using them, where to focus your efforts. We'll talk a little bit about budget and what content you should be creating. We're going to talk about thought leadership, blog posts a little bit. The list goes on and on. Again, there's a lot of information out there. So our goal is to just help provide some clarity around that, give you guys some actionable insights into where to focus your efforts, because you could really spend, a lot of time, 24 hours a day doing this. We want to make sure that you're able to leave here with some actionable insights and tips and a better understanding of kind of this roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't be more right. It can be a daunting amount of questions. And so, as I mentioned kind of right out of the gate, our goal here today is really to create a roadmap, and we're going to hit 5 stops along the way. And you can kind of see those right there, which we're going to go into a lot more detail kind of as we're getting started. Just to show you a little bit around the room, we've got the chat function, and we will be doing a Q&A later. So feel free to use that if you have any questions, if you're having any technical difficulties. But as we move forward, if something prompts that could serve as a good question, we'll be setting aside some time at the end. And we'll also have some great offers too as we get closer to the end. So kind of starting from the beginning is who are Sam and I? So I started an agency almost 10 years ago called Entropy Healthcare Marketing. Really since the onset, we have focused in the medical space of healthcare marketing. So this is really kind of our bread and butter. We do this for all of our individual practices and healthcare organizations, is helping them put this roadmap together and go out and execute on it to attract new patients. And we've done it for over 30 subspecialties throughout the years.
Yeah, that's awesome, Justin. So I have been helping physicians and medical practices implement various types of solutions to just help in practice improvement efforts in care, improving the quality of care that they provide to patients. I've been with Rate for over 2 years now. We're one of the fastest growing healthcare focused online reputation management companies. We work with over 150 clients, over 30 different specialties. And something that we're really proud of is our Net Promoter Score, which is a score of 93. So really, we see this as a partnership, not just a software that we provide. And we want to make sure that our clients are seeing the best improvement, and also just are feeling confident, guided in the way in which we're kind of improving their reputation.
So as we're getting started, kind of walk us through at a really high level, kind of what the patient journey typically looks like.
Absolutely, Justin. We're going to talk a lot today about brand awareness. That's really where the journey starts. We're going to spend some time on the website, but we want to make patients aware of your practice, right? We'll talk about different marketing tactics, ads. The next step is patients are typically going online to check the online reviews. And that can even be when they're referred to a physician by a friend, or find the provider on their insurance carrier's website. The next step is visiting the practice website. And then the goal here is they convert to becoming a new patient. They book an appointment. They then fall into this other side of the coin. And this is another area in which Rate focuses on, which is practice improvement. So getting feedback from the patient, making that easy, even fun for the patient to provide their comments and feedback, improving on the experience from that feedback collected from the patient, and then continuing to generate word of mouth referrals, which we'll always see as one of the best forms of advertising.
Yeah, and that kind of picks up with what you're talking about as the website. What we're calling, kind of like I mentioned, we're going to talk about 5 stops today. And the first, and one of really the most important, is your medical website, because it really serves as that kind of digital billboard and one of the most important assets that really everything funnels into. And it's really kind of that first impression, which is a critical impression that we want to make sure that we win when we're looking at patients. And kind of looking at the site at a high level, because there can be so many different things like UX, UI, and all these things. But what really matters outside of the design of your site, and these are kind of the things that we want to look at. And we're talking about social proof on your website, those valuable resources that patients are looking for, and what makes you different. So your key differentiators, and then making sure that it's very easy for patients to book and convert once they have found your website. So kind of getting started on the social proof side, and this is your area of expertise, Sam, is talk to us a little bit about how we can use social proof on the website.
Yeah, so integrating both testimonials and also just feedback from patients. As you can see here, doctors or the healthcare industry, it's one of the most important verticals for reputation management. Again, patients, they don't have a lot of information readily available to them. And so again, a patient's not going to know how good a surgeon's hands are. So really, they rely on this feedback and testimonials from other patients to make the best choice for them and where they're going to go and receive their care. And here we've got an example of a practice website, and this is a provider's bio page. This is one of our clients, and just what that looks like with reviews and without reviews and testimonials. So there's some SEO benefits here. Google likes to see this dynamic content. They're continually going around and basically crawling these pages. And so on the right-hand side, we have an example of our testimonials widget, which is completely automated. And this is pulling in all the best testimonials from around the web. Google likes to see this dynamic content. There's also a verified reviews page widget that we have there, which will host all the internal comments and feedback from our software. Again, really the goal here is to give patients confidence that you're the best choice for them once they reach your website, and make it easy for them to book an appointment, which kind of leads into Justin, this next slide for you.
Yeah, and that's, as you mentioned, online appointment booking functionality. I think that this has really been thrust exponentially quickly into the limelight. We've been encouraging our practices for a long time to adopt it because of the paid advertising benefits and the tracking benefits, but really taking a step back, and obviously COVID has made it more critical than ever to have online appointment booking. But even as we transition out of COVID eventually, it's really here to stay. And if you look at all of the statistics, the adoption rates in over 60 and under 60-year-old, people are comfortable with it now. And there's a statistic that I saw that said 81% of people would schedule their own appointment if they had the ability to. So, I mean, you're talking about 8 out of 10 people that come to your site are more than happy to book online and fill out a lot of those forms if you provide that too, which will save time and effort as well. So it's just really critical that you get it up on your site and you make it readily available. And I really wanted to talk about one of my first loves is search engine optimization. And I know it's a lot, it can be such a convoluted, confusing, and what feels like a kind of non-tangible ecosystem for practices. But if you really break it down, and Sam, I know you and I have spent hours talking about this.
Yeah.
But if you look at a high level of kind of what occurs when a local search is done, and COVID has changed some of the landscape, but at the end of the day, practices that are listening to this, they really care the most about that 20 to 25 mile radius around their practice, and how do I win that battle? And if you look at this chart, it really kind of breaks down to a few really important things, and that's your on-page optimization. So the content that you have on your site and making sure that it's very robust. And what I have on here is called a skyscraper technique. Without getting too technical, really what it means is whatever it is that you do and you do it well, you're the best in the business at your specialty vertical as a surgeon or a non-surgical provider, is have really thorough conditions and treatment pages, and then build supportive content around that. That can be your blog, that can be videos, that can be other sub-treatment pages on that, say, spine surgery topic, and then link them back. And then, Sam, I love your thoughts kind of on these last two, because I know this really kind of goes back to the reputation side that you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Individual pages for both locations and physicians. Again, the SEO importance is there, but also just that dedicated page of we're able to fill that with, things that are specific to that doctor or location. And then optimize Google My Business listings, really important for local ranking. If you put your kind of feet in Google's shoes, they want to recommend the most attentive businesses or practices. And so one way in which we show them that is by having a complete and optimized profile. This is going to make a positive first impression with patients that come across it, but it's also going to help more patients find these listings who may not be aware of them. And we're going to talk here shortly about a couple different types of searches and how patients are finding doctors online today.
Yeah, and you see it. I mean, and all of these are so intertwined too. So it really is like your Google My Business bounces off this, which bounces off that. So it really takes a huge chunk. So it's such a great point to bring up. The other side of it is what we see all too often, and a lot of them are really, really kind of simple things, but kind of the common pitfalls that we run into day in and day out when we do SEO audits and practice evaluations, and what we do a lot of in helping our practices. And first and foremost is don't fall victim to the dreaded list of services. That just crushes SEO. And you need to, going back to what I said before, if you want to rank for it, you need a page for it. And so you need to get those conditions, those treatments, those specialty surgical procedures you're offering, really, really well thought out pages. And then make sure, obviously, it's built for mobile. That needs to be a non-negotiable. And make sure that you have easy online appointment booking. And then going back to what you said before, Sam, is those doctors and location pages are super critical for localized SEO.
Yeah, there's two other things that we see a lot across the healthcare industry. And the first is make sure what is on your website matches what is on your online profiles. And what I'm referring to is NAP consistency, right? So NAP is name, address, and phone number. A lot of times we'll see what's listed on these location pages does not match what lists on the Google My Business listing, and it's harder for Google to make that connection. So we want to make sure there's consistency across your website and your online profiles. And the next piece is kind of, just kind of in line with what you were just mentioning, Justin, and making sure that we've got, not just a list of services, but also in addition to, maybe having a page for each service line, making it easy for patients to find the doctors that, treat those conditions, or and just list them out there. Just again, make the patient journey as easy as possible. Don't make them search for you or chase you. And I know that's something that you talk about a lot, Justin.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the NAP thing, the name, address, phone number consistency, is so critical. It's something that's so easy too. Is we did a podcast recently, and one of the biggest tips from somebody who deals day in and day out with physicians is Google yourself. Especially surgeons are journeymen. They do residency somewhere, fellowship somewhere, they go to practice somewhere, maybe a hospital system. So start by doing something that's so easy, is literally Google yourself. And you may be surprised at how inconsistent all of that information is. And that kind of leads us right into stop number 2, which is one of the main things that Raider 8 does too. So I'm really excited to kind of hear about all of your insights into reviews and reputation.
Yeah. So got a little stat here, 77% of prospective patients research online reviews before booking their first appointment. And I know I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but patients don't have a lot of information at their disposal when choosing a new provider. So we want to make sure that we're taking control of our online reputation and making it as easy as possible for the happy patients to share their story online. So kind of transitioning into how doctors are collecting feedback today. There's a lot of different ways in which you can solicit or ask patients for reviews. Any kind of initiative is better than no initiative. So more of a manual process. I've seen it all. There are, doctors handing out business cards to patients, to the front desk staff, iPad kiosks to leave a review. The one thing to be cognizant of there is we don't want all the reviews coming from the same IP address. So just something to keep in mind and research before doing that. The challenge with this is, you've got to remember to ask the patient to hand out those business cards. I've also seen links on websites, and I've even talked with doctors who are sending the review links to patients while they're in the exam room with them. Again, any effort is better than no effort, but if you're looking to really streamline and improve the results, automated solutions like Raider 8, there's a lot of other great companies out there that focus on this. It can help you have a more effective online review build. And again, just take that burden off the staff or the doctors to be remembering you're going to see a lot better results with this, with an automated tool. Now, transition into which review sites to focus on. There's a lot of review sites out there. We've got a crown here on the Google logo because Google really is dominating today. 94% of online searches start on Google, desktop and mobile. And so when we do a Google search, your Google My Business listings are taking up more than half the page, or they're taking up all the real estate on a mobile search, and over half the searches are mobile searches today. So again, Google's a great place to start and focus on, but there are a lot of other sites and some that may be more important in your area or your specialty. So I would recommend just doing a quick search, as you mentioned, Justin, for the providers' locations, seeing what shows up on the first page, as that's going to be really what's most important. And just focus on any areas that may be a red flag to patients. Red flag would be anything that's less than a 4.0 star rating. About half of patients pulled in a recent survey said they wouldn't consider booking an appointment with a doctor with less than 4 stars. So bringing up any of those red flags on Health Grades, Vitals, Facebook is very important.
And that,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually really interested to hear from you, because a lot of people forget, I think, that there's really 2 sides to a patient journey when they do a search. And so tell us a little bit kind of about what each of those looks like and the role that reviews kind of play in helping you improve visibility on both sides of those searches.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first is our direct search. And this is when a patient is familiar with you, they're searching for you specifically. Again, another recent poll, over half the patients, even when referred to a physician, are going online to look up that doctor's online reviews. So the goal here is, again, giving patients confidence that you're the best choice for them. you can see that this example of the Google My Business listing on the right-hand side, taking up over half the screen. So this is why we say focusing on Google is really important. And again, we're just trying to give patients confidence here. Now there's a whole other search, right? And this could be the direct search, both a practice or a provider search. A lot of times they're searching for providers specifically, so we want to focus on building both of those listings. But potentially even a more important search for attracting new patients who may not be aware of you is a local search. Now, what we're looking at here is called the Google 3-pack. And there's a lot of different factors that go into who appears in here. First and foremost, these near me or local searches have increased by over 900% the past 2 years. So our ultimate goal for our clients is to ensure that they're appearing in this 3-pack, and not just appearing in here, but outshining the local competition. So what we see across our clients is that having a high star rating, having a large number of reviews, and having recent reviews is some of the factors in which are some of the largest factors that play into who is appearing in this 3-pack. So tackling your online reviews, we've got an example here. This is an online reviews analysis, and this looks at, for providers, their rating, the current state across Google Health Grades and Vitals. And these are the sites that we typically see appearing highest in the organic search results when searching for a provider. So a good first step is just understanding where you're currently at, looking up your doctors online. And actually, this is something that we want to help you out with. So at the end, we'll talk about, if you're interested in having Raterate put together an online reviews analysis for you and a scorecard, we'd be more than happy to do that and spend a couple minutes just reviewing this with you and kind of just giving some insight into where to best focus your efforts for online review building and improvement. So some of the common pitfalls of reputation management would be not creating separate listings for doctors. We want to make sure that even separate listings for different locations that they practice at. This is going to help patients that may be doing a local search in that area become aware of you, but it's also going to avoid patient confusion. If they've got an appointment with you at, in a certain location, but they find a listing in a completely different location, we don't want them ending up at the wrong address. Also, focusing just on location listings, but not building reviews for individual doctors. We see this a lot. And so having that review diversity, having an even build across your listings is extremely important. Google My Business listing, having them fully optimized. We talked about this a little bit, but making sure that the category is correct. That's extremely important. Making sure that the bio is there. We talked about appointment scheduling. So there's an appointment link on the Google My Business listing. We just want to make sure that we have that complete profile. Google's going to give that more weight in their algorithms. And then just, again, focusing on an even build across websites. We don't just want to focus on one platform. So again, a tool like Raterate or others, they can help you really polish across different listings and target those red flags, but make sure that you're asking patients to leave reviews on different sites and not just Google, even though we know that's really important.
Yeah, I think, and to kind of a pro tip on number 3 is category is a category killer. I mean, it crushes you. And so if you're an orthopedic surgeon, there's an orthopedic surgery category, even more specifically in a lot of the subspecialties in orthopedics. And the list goes on. So make sure not only you choose your primary category, but leverage the other ones that apply. You can get up to about 5. And probably the most important from a keyword standpoint is the first sentence in your Google My Business description. And so I always tell people is you want what you do and where you do it in the first sentence. So Dr. Smith is an orthopedic surgeon in Austin, Texas. It gives 2 things to Google. It tells you them very specifically what you do and very specifically where you are. And it just reaffirms that. So keep that in mind when you're optimizing those profiles too. And that kind of takes us to the third stop on our roadmap, and that is social media and the important role that it can and should play in building an engaged community of patients, especially nowadays, now that they're just so interested in their own personal health journey. I think it's more critical than ever to be really cognizant and focused on making a concerted effort to be authentic on social. And that I kind of put together what we see when we either see great success on social or we don't see any success. And I think these points right here, while they seem simple, are going to be the most critical things to keep in mind. And that's be consistent. You've got to go back to the well because patients are it's going to build brand loyalty. Number two, which may be the most important, and yes, it can be difficult, but it's why we encourage making content development, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, as easy and scalable as possible, but you've got to get your physicians involved.
Mm-hmm.
Patients want to hear, they don't want to see stock photos, which is what I have as a last bullet. They want to see authenticity, they want to see realness, they want to see rawness, and they want to hear from the thought leader, which is you as the provider. So it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be daunting. But the more you bring people into your practice, into the OR room, and they hear from you for common FAQs, the more successful that you're going to be. And then when it really comes to the quantity versus quality of social media, I think the biggest things on the quality side to focus on are your lighting and your sound. They're very easy to do. You can get a lapel mic on Amazon. You can get a ring light on Amazon. There's a lot of things you can do for a very, very affordable budget that will allow you to get the basics right. And that's make sure people can hear you very cleanly and that they can see you with great lighting. And last but certainly not least, probably the most critical component, and it goes back to, Sam, what you've been talking about a lot in reviews, is get patients involved in the storytelling about what you did, the outcomes that they experienced. The more you can do that, they're your ambassadors and they're going to sell the practice for you. Obviously, disclaimer, depending on when and how you're doing that, you just need to make sure that you have releases from the patients in order to do that. But with that said, it is well worth the effort as far as getting them involved in the storytelling of your practice.
Yeah, those videos can be so powerful, Justin, hearing the testimonials versus reading them. So, patients engage in different ways. It's nice to have that,
Sure.
the different kind of tools for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, and thinking about scale, thinking about ease of use, one of the surprising things is the lack of leveraging a lot of available social media tools that are out there. There's a ton of them. I just put a few at a high level that we either use at the agency, or they're very cost effective and affordable and very, very readily available. And I would really encourage practices to leverage as many of these social management tools, because what it allows you to do is really disseminate that information and that content across multiple platforms without you having to do the laborious task of logging in and posting it on each one. So I put a list, like I mentioned, of probably 5 of the big boys, as well as some that we use at the agency day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, go ahead. How should they be using these reviews we've been talking about on social media?
Yeah, a lot of these things, they're not completely independent. So we can create this kind of cross hybrid between, example here would be leveraging your reviews on social media channels. So here's an example of one of our clients using their verified review page to promote their physicians, their doctors. I've seen this across Facebook as well. So, both with testimonials or, authentic reviews that you've collected, sharing those on your social channels can be a very valuable tool in attracting new patients.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this really leads me back to my last point that I see as people do move into getting more and more engaged on social, they really struggle to ever gain really serious traction. And I think it's all too often because they're trying to be too much to too many. And while you do want to disseminate your information across the other social channels, the most successful, and it's what we tell people, is focus on one platform that aligns the best and provides the largest reach and opportunity for whatever patient base that you're serving for your practice. And that can be predicated on the type of content. If you want to do video, maybe YouTube's right for you or Instagram's right for you. Most of the channels are very omni content, so you can create video, you can create graphics, but I would recommend is build your content, build your post structures, build your posting time strategies, build all of it around one platform that makes the most sense for you and how you want to reach patients. And then obviously leverage a social media management tool to get that information out to the rest. But start with one or it becomes overwhelming very, very quickly. And that kind of leads us into the 4th stop, and it's something that can be a very confusing stop, is paid ads. and how to go about investing in paid ads the right way. And to get that started, because there's always pros and cons to really everything when you're looking at it, whether it's opportunity cost, time cost, those kind of things. When it comes to paid advertising, I think the great things about it are it's crazy easy to track it. It's probably the easiest potentially to get a clear ROI on because of all the tracking suite of tools and data that these platforms offer. And you can ramp up pretty quickly. SEO is kind of my first love, as I mentioned, and it's crazy powerful, and the ROI is crazy powerful, but it's not something that happens overnight. Like, you don't build your website and the next day you're ranking #1 for all the things that you do in your area. It's a process that you need to work at. But with paid ads, you have a little bit shorter lead time. And then on the con side is costs are going to continue to go up. I mean, Sam, you've seen this. And since Facebook's IPO, like 95 to 98% of all of Google's revenue is driven through ad spend. I mean, these platforms have fiduciary responsibility to increase shareholder value. And so these ads are going to continue to get more and more expensive as more people are using it, as the platforms have to continue to increase their costs. So that's always a fear. And honestly, you've got high competition, declining ad interaction. Less and less people are clicking on ads because they're more inundated. Not every specialty is the right fit for paid ads too. And we're going to talk about that in a second. And the other side is the long-term sustainability of paid ads. Like, I'm a firm believer, we do it at the agency, but I always tell people from a weighted scales, you still want to be investing in SEO as kind of your long-term play, because there's so many unknowns when you're completely tethered to lead generation as your source of patients and revenue. And you don't want to do that. You want to diversify and you want to invest in organic search while you're doing that.
Yeah, one thing I want to add there, Justin, there's a reason that we've got it as stop number 4. I think focusing on, and you know better than I, but the keywords have gotten a lot more competitive, especially over the last couple months. I know that they're up, maybe sometimes 40% depending on the specialty and the words that you are. Yeah, so just we want to make sure that your website is in order, your online reviews are in order before we get to ads. It's going to make all of your other brand awareness efforts that much more successful, because we know that they're still going to, look at your online profiles and visit your website once they find that ad. So just kind of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there's several steps that you need to go through. That's kind of for another webinar, but we will brush on it. What, to your point, is your website needs to be ready, your reputation needs to be ready. And then what I have on this slide, you need to think through. And I think all too often people just jump into ads, and that's how you can end up with a bad taste in your mouth as a result of blowing through ad spend, and you don't know what happened to it. You get on the other side and you're like, well, that was ineffective. And it's because they haven't done what you talked about, as well as this is important for several different things. But a lot of people ask us, like, what ads platform should we be using? And first and foremost, to answer that question, you need to reverse engineer it. Is who is your patient really? And it sounds stupid. Every provider could list, well, these are the typical people we see. But taking that information and understanding what we're advertising, where are they in the journey? Are they problem aware but not solution aware? Or are they aware of a solution and you just need to get it in front of them? Do they need more education? What type of content am I going to be doing? Video? Am I going to be doing driving them to a landing page? Like, what are my goals? A lot of these things you need to sit down and figure out first, because that information is going to lead you to the end result of what platforms are going to make you the most successful. So I always say is start by figuring out who, what, why answers. And to your point, Sam, make sure that your ducks are in a row from your reputation and your website. And I'm not going to go through this whole list. There's 20 different advertising platforms. These are by far the 4 most common that we interface and leverage with as far as our clients are concerned. So I thought they were the ones that warrant the most conversation. They all have pros and cons, and I listed a lot of them. The biggest difference on the social side really between Facebook and Instagram is going to be the age. If you're serving an older than 30 audience, Facebook can tend to be a little bit more effective, and then Instagram if you're 30 and under. But all of these have high high effectiveness depending on the types of things that you're advertising. If your patient happens to be problem aware and they're searching online, then maybe Google Ads are right for you. Maybe they're not, and maybe you need to do a push method and put stuff in front of them, and social and YouTube could be right for them. And then I came up with a couple ideas from a high level of things we've done over the years or are seen very effective that clients have done. And those are direct response, webinars, downloadables. I've got one on here that's a women's health focused facility that we did a menopause focused quiz. And it was a really, really easy lead capture, low level trips and triggers, and then we nurtured them to a resounding success. So there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage paid ads to reach a whole lot of people. And really to wrap it up, a few tips that I have on the ad side is make sure that you nurture what I just mentioned. Is you're paying for ads, put them into a nurture sequence, because you're not going to convert 10 out of 10 people that end up converting for an ad. And make sure that you're leaning on data. Don't guess. And go slow. I think a lot of people run out of the gate, build it and they will come, launch ads, and 2 days later they're not working to what they imagined that they'd work, so they just shut it all down. And so you really need to go in as a long-term plan and be patient in your advertising process. And the last stop on the train, Sam, is developing thought leadership. And I'm excited about talking this because it kind of wraps up a lot of the things that we've been talking about today. And I think more than ever, patients are crazy hungry to learn from their thought leaders, which are their providers and their specialty surgeons. Wouldn't you agree, Sam?
Yeah, and I think it ties perfectly back into the ad section we just talked about. We really want to be providing as much value through those ads. So whether that's in written content, and that can go, directly into thought leadership, just positioning yourself as the expert because you are, and giving patients, helping patients understand that.
For sure. And I could not agree more, because I think that now more than ever is, and I think a lot of physicians want to leave a legacy. They want to develop their own footprint, whether you're in a hospital ecosystem, you're in a private practice, or maybe you're a partner, one of many. Now more than ever, with what's sitting in your pocket and your cell phone, you can develop tons of video thought leadership information that can be really, really engaging with patients, and not only engage existing patients by providing them valuable information, but attract a lot of new ones. This screenshot that I actually have on the right, I won't mention their name. It's not a client of ours, to preface it, but I'm very familiar with them. He does more balloon sinus dilations than anyone in the United States, and really has built that ecosystem purely based on thought leadership, by providing video assets and answering common FAQs. And really, so when patients land on his site, they're like, this is the guy that I need to seek out for my sinus issues. And that just shows you how powerful thought leadership can be. And if you're struggling, getting started can be difficult. If you're struggling to come up with ideas as it relates to content, I think you'd be really surprised if you sat down and took 30 minutes in a quiet room and just thought about all of the questions that patients ask you day in and day out. Two great things: you'll come up with probably 6 months of content. And the other thing is, that they care about it because they asked you about it. So it's two really simple things. And I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that as well, Sam.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, right? Just the questions that you're getting asked most frequently, that patient is not the only patient who has that question. So it can really help get you off on the right start of, what content to be creating, and, making sure that it's valuable to your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can always peruse the WebMDs of the world too, and see what things people are really searching for and what comes up in auto suggest. And again, that's verifiable proof that patients care about these things and they want to know answers about it. And who better than you as the specialty provider to provide that information to your inpatients and build that trust score with them. So now we've arrived kind of at our final destination. And so to kind of recap really quickly, Sam, what we've talked about today is kind of the first stop on the train was your website and how critical of a role that plays, and really everything else that we talked about, both on and off site. And that kind of leads us into your reputation and how critical it is for you to focus on that.
Yeah. So, and again, they're interconnected, right? Online reviews and your online profiles are a great way to drive traffic to your website. So we need to make sure that we're taking control of our reputation. If we're not, again, it can be skewed a little bit negatively. So
yeah,
happy patients are more than, they'd love to share their story online. You just have to invite them to do so sometimes, give them that little push that they need, and create an engaged community on social media, right? Integrating the reviews and the testimonials onto your socials, engaging with patients, responding to reviews. They want to see that, that you care and that you're listening for both positive and those potentially negative comments.
Yeah, and then paid ads. And we looked at kind of the pros and cons of it, and really the way you can reverse engineer answering the question, what platform is right for me, by going back to the basics and really detailing in a document who your patients are and where they're engaging at from a social standpoint. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is become a thought leader in your space. You're just going to be amazed at what it will allow you to do and the patient growth that you can achieve by simply just going out and starting to talk about what you already know so much about to begin with. And that kind of leads us into the Q&A time. So use, as I mentioned earlier, we've already had some great questions that have come through, but if you've got any particular questions that you'd like Sam or I to address before we wrap up our time today, make sure you drop them in the chat. But really kind of to get started, Sam, is one of the questions that we had is, should I focus on my location listings or provider listings first? Then that's a really common question I hear too.
Yeah, it's a great question. They're both important. I would say location might make the most sense to start on. Again, if you've got a doctor and patients are searching for a really, one of your well-known doctors, you can focus on both. But the beauty of focusing on the location listing is that it's going to amass a lot of reviews really quickly, especially if all the doctors are making a combined effort to have their patients leave a review there. And so it can be a great place to start because we can build a lot of online reviews quickly, which is going to give patients in that direct search confidence, but also help patients become aware of you as that listing will amass a lot of reviews. It's going to be the most likely to show up first in that local search or that Google 3-pack.
That is a really great point. And then another question is, what should I be budgeting for paid ads? And that's a great question, and it's one that we get a whole lot. And there's 100 different answers to this, but I do want you to be able to take away something from it. What we always recommend is you need 90 days to really thoroughly optimize and vet an advertising campaign. That does not mean it takes 90 days to get results. What that means is to get enough data back to make smart, good marketing decisions. So kind of work in reverse from that, saying I've got 90 days. What budget am I comfortable with spending over those 90 days that will give me enough data to test against over the long haul? And that answer could be $500 or $5,000. But that's a good place to start, is go in thinking I'm in this for 90 days, and based on what I'm trying to get out of it and the cost of those procedures and what my hurdle rate is on those, you should be able to land on a pretty good budget estimation. And then obviously any good advertising expert or agency should be able to give you a good estimate as well. So another one your way, Sam, is once my Google reviews are squared away, what site should be next?
I think the best, there's not an answer that I can provide that would make sense to all of you. So again, this ties back into our offering here. We'd love to put together a reputation scorecard for you, which is just going to show you where your doctors are on some of the leading sites. And that's going to give you a great idea of where you need to focus your efforts. Alternatively, if you want to put in the time to do that, just search for your doctors and write down where they are on Google or on Health Grades Vitals. We see WebMD showing up a lot, and Facebook is also another big one, more so for the practice. So I would say focus on any red flags that you see first that could potentially deter a patient. And then the target would just be at least a 4-star rating on these other sites outside of Google. And 10 reviews, but patients also around 30 reviews is another good benchmark if you're building a lot of reviews very, very quickly.
Excellent. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
So we had just another one come in on chat. Tom asked, why is the list of medical procedures dreaded? And so I wanted to provide a little clarification on that. It's not the actual list of whatever it is that you're doing or the conditions or treatments that you offer. Having that on your site, that's fantastic information. Kind of the point I was trying to drive home is don't just do a bulleted list on a services or treatments page on your site and call it a day. You really want to make sure, and having a list on a home services page or treatments page is fine, but those need to be hyperlinked to a dedicated individual treatment page on whatever it is that you're focused on. Say it's an ENT practice and they want to rank high for sleep apnea. You can't just rely on listing sleep apnea as something that you treat on your site. You need a sleep apnea dedicated page where you're talking about what causes it, how to prevent it, how long it takes to recover from the procedure, what is a CPAP machine, where you're really just talking about all of that information. So listing it's fine, but what I'm encouraging you to do is you've got to go a step further as far as how search engine optimization works and create a dedicated page on that.
And Justin, I'm sure that's really important for SEO, but it's also likely important as positioning you as that thought leader, kind of tying that back together, right?
Absolutely, 100%. It's, again, all of these things. It's amazing when you look at the roadmap as a whole, how much of the stuff is really interwoven together once you really kind of understand how it's all set up. And then another question is tips for growing followers on social media. Do you just keep pushing valuable content, or do you ask patients to follow you? And that's a great question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well, Sam. I think from my end, I think content, all too often people are under the build it and they will come impression for social media. And that's just not the case. It really does come to build good content and they will come. There are tricks and things that you can do. I think running promotions, leveraging influencers, even leveraging paid advertising. You can do $1 a day paid advertising strategy to retarget visitors on your site to like your Facebook page. You can invite people to like your page who have liked your posts. The great thing about Instagram is you can be proactive in building your following by going out and following people that have a similar profile makeup like we talked about earlier to your end patient. So those are a few things that I have. Do you have any tips on that side?
I would agree with you, Justin. I think what you said really covers it. Quality over quantity in terms of content. We don't just want to be pushing out things to make sure that we have a post every week and we kind of meet these goals that we've laid out, but potentially like some campaigns or promotions, putting signs in the waiting room, just making patients aware of your socials, and potentially even doing some some type of giveaway. Have you ever seen any practices do that, Justin?
I have. I mean, I've seen that used to really great effect. I think you need to be cognizant about how you're structuring it so you can get as much, because I'd rather have 50 people that fit our target profile than 5,000 people. That's just for the sake of building engagement. So really think through kind of what you want out of it when you're building a promotion. I've seen that used to a great effect. I think the other side is, to Amanda's question, do you just keep pushing valuable content? Is one piece of content should make many pieces of content. And think about that. Is one blog post, like how can I, if it's like 10 tips to avoid back pain, every one of those tips can be a social media post. You can have doctors make individual videos supporting that content. You can make graphics out of it. I mean, you can take a top-down approach and turn one piece of content into 20 different social media posts and drive a lot of valuable engagement out of it.
Yeah, right. And I think just one last tip there is, you can have fun with it too. I know that some of the practices we work with, they show guess which one of our doctors this is, and it's an old maybe like high school yearbook photo. So have fun with it. Make your patients laugh. There's a lot of different things you can do. Just be creative. Yeah,
I think be authentic, be real, and things will follow suit. Create human interaction on social. I know you hear it all the time, but be social on social. But it really is. I mean, it's true. Is that people want to see real authenticity and leverage all the new tools that social platforms come out with. Like LinkedIn's testing its live beta right now, they're not throttling that reach yet. So like when Facebook came out with live, at that point, organic reach had dropped all the way down to about 2-ish%. It's even less now. But when their live came out, they want high adoption rates on the new tools they're testing so they can get, again, as much data back as possible. So when they introduce those tools, be an early adopter. I think the best one right now is, we'll look at what TikTok has done, and people growing hundreds of thousands of followers in a matter of weeks because they haven't throttled their algorithm yet. Wait till their IPO occurs, and that's going to happen. But on Instagram rolled out stories and then TV, and those are the types of tools that you need to be looking at adopting, because you're going to get a substantially higher visibility rate and organic reach rate on any new tools that these platforms are rolling out.
Yeah, great points.
And best way to get/ask for testimonials. So you talked a lot about it. What do you think, in your opinion, is the easiest way to go about it to create success?
Yeah, I think just, you got to first start collecting feedback from patients. That's kind of the first place to start understanding where there may be a potential area of patient, dissatisfaction. That's the best way to mitigate negative reviews. And then you'd be surprised, looking across our client base and all the doctors we work with, the average rating on our platform is a 4.8 out of 5 stars versus what we find online, which is about a 3.6. Mm-hmm. So what that tells me is online reviews are hard to leave, and unhappy patients are the most motivated, but the majority of your patients are happy. We just have to do our part asking them for reviews. So another area in which, and this ties back into content, thought leadership, within our system, if we detect a patient to be really happy, leaving long comments, we'll actually ask them if they're open to, sharing their information with the practice as the purposes of for a testimonial. That way they can integrate, more of a long written post on their socials, or even reach out to that patient for a follow-up to have them come in and create a video. So a lot of different tools or ways in which you can go about this, but start by collecting feedback, start by asking patients to leave a review, and more than likely, a lot of them would be happy to do so. Yeah,
that's great. And so as we kind of wrap up, obviously a couple different things that we hit on today is I know, Sam, I won't speak for you, but I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. I love connecting with the people that were on here. We give lots and lots of advice and things just like this webinar we're doing. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. And Sam, I'm sure you'd love for people to do the same.
Absolutely.
And tell about the offer. You mentioned it really briefly. We have links here, as well as they'll be in the emails that y'all will receive for the replay, which you will be getting, along with these offers that will be here. So tell them a little bit about your offer that they can take advantage of.
Yeah, Justin. So what we're offering is just basically an online reviews analysis and a Google My Business scorecard. We want to make it easy for you to identify where best to focus your efforts, because every provider has a little bit different, every practice, but also every provider has a little bit different need of where online reviews would most benefit them. So this will really help you identify your low-hanging fruit in terms of which sites to target. And then in terms of the Google My Business scorecard, what this does is it's really an exception list, kind of, what areas of the listing need to be cleaned up to ensure that they are, helping you make a positive first impression, but also helping your listings appear in that local search. So 2 scorecards or analyses, and we'll make it easy on you. We'll do all the work in putting that together, share that with you, so you don't have to go searching for each individual doctor. And I know, Justin, you guys have a great offering as well. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So ours is pretty simple. I mean, we'd love to get connected and learn more about your practice. And we do that through a completely free, what we call Practice Accelerator session. And what that involves is pretty much you send us your information when you fill out the form. We take that and we do kind of a high-level audit. We look at where you're at. We look at where your competitor's at. And then we meet and we spend 25 minutes really just trying to give as much valuable information as we can on what we would do if we were in your shoes and where the opportunities of growth are for you, as well as we'll give you kind of a sneak peek under the hood of what keywords are driving the most traffic to your competitor sites, as well as what pages on their sites are getting the most patient traffic, because that can be really valuable information to kind of reverse engineer an SEO strategy. So yeah, we'll, again, like I said, we'll have both of those links to the Raider 18 scorecard as well as to our Accelerator session. And as we wrap up, I wanted to thank you, Sam, for taking time out of your busy schedule to share this incredibly valuable expertise that you have.
No, Justin, thank you. It's, a pleasure to do this with you. I know that, your company and you and Kelly, you really pick up where we leave off and vice versa. So I think we're a great team, and great to hear your kind of, for you to lend your expertise and share some of the knowledge that you've been accumulating over these years, working with practices and doctors.
Well, thank everybody that's still on the webinar for attending. And as we're ending, in the next 2 hours or so, you'll receive the initial replay. And please get in touch with Samurai if you have any questions. We look forward to networking, connecting.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your time. Really appreciate it, and hope to work with you, talk with you, just provide some guidance, even if it's not, a formal partnership. But Justin, thanks again.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.